to have the privilege of having the job of making the roads safe. That's rewarding for me. Getting through a storm and seeing the final product of what you've done. It's something I take pride in, and because of it being a challenge, it's something I enjoy doing.
For County Sheriff, Scott Hilton Brandon and Jameelah Holden will face each other in the Republican primary. We'll begin with Mr. Hilton Brandon.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming out today. It was such a beautiful day. I'm sure it's tough to be inside after that. We all want to be outside, but I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a lifelong resident of Geauga County. I graduated from Chardon High School and Auburn Career Center. Right out of high school, I joined the volunteer fire department in the community I lived in Hamden. That got me interested in public safety. I started in 1984 at the Chardon Police Department as a dispatcher, worked my way up through the ranks, went to night school, became a patrolman, and eventually a sergeant. In 2003, when Sheriff Simmons passed away, Sheriff McClellan asked me to come down and become his chief deputy, and I was the chief deputy for 13 years then until 2016 when I was elected as the sheriff of Geauga County. I've attended Lakeland Community College. I'm a certified law enforcement manager by the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association. I graduated from the National Sheriff's Institute in Denver, Colorado. I'm the father of 3 adult children, and I have 35 years of Geauga County law enforcement. During my tenure as sheriff, we purchased a $130,000 body scanner for the jail, similar to what we would see at the airport. We did that without any tax money. We used the profits from the commissary. We shared in the cost of 2 drones for the county that all the county safety forces use. In 2000, we converted our cell phones to the FirstNet Public Safety Service priority service and saved the county thousands of money while giving our deputies priority service on their cell. In 2019 alone, our deputies confiscated almost 11,000 THC vape pens, 25 pounds of marijuana, 116 marijuana plants, over 5 pounds of cocaine, 4 pounds of methamphetamine, 23 grams of carfentanil, fentanyl, and heroin, and over $200,000 in cash. I'm a member of the Geauga County Drug Court that Judge Paschke started last year, and we also started a church safety training program for our churches. The Sheriff's Office has 182 beds in our jail. We've brought back more than $15 million since the jail has opened back to the county. Our deputies are highly trained, and they've solved 3 cold case homicides, many robberies, break-ins, sex crimes, and in the last year alone, there were 82 people charged with multiple felonies. As sheriff, I'm very proud of the fact that I work very closely with the other elected officials. Especially importantly, close relationship I have with the prosecutor, all 4 judges, the county commissioners, and great relationship with all the police departments and the fire departments in the county. We participate in task force, regional SWAT team, bomb squad, U.S. Marshals Violent Fugitive Task Force, Social Security fraud investigations, and I'm a member of the Northeast Ohio Fusion Center Advisory Board. We get much more done when we work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hilton Brandon. Mr. Holden, you now have 3 minutes for your comments.
Good evening. I'm Jameelah Holden. I live in Newberry with my wife Donna and our 3 teenagers who keep us very busy between their academic and athletic events. I have 2 adult children who are college educated and thriving in their professional careers, and I'm happy to say that we also have a daughter-in-law. Donna is a law enforcement professional of 21 years and an Army veteran. I started my law enforcement career in 1981. I retired full-time service in 2018 as an administrative staff lieutenant, and I currently work for the Village of Grand River. I have a bachelor's degree in government public administration through Liberty University. I'm a basic academy instructor certified through the Ohio Peace Officers Training Academy, and I currently volunteer my time with the Cleveland Heights Police Academy. I'm a benefactor life member of the National Rifle Association. I am a life member and endorsed by the Ohio Gun Collectors Association, and I'm a member and proudly endorsed by Sheriff Mack and the Constitutional Sheriff and Peace Officers Association. I am running for sheriff because I've been approached by citizens and asked why we are not doing more to combat illegal drug sales in our county. Persons who have a friend or family member with an addiction want more done to prevent the sale of illegal drugs in our county. On February 7th, at the Geauga Growth Partnership meeting, the Chardon Police Chief stated he did not have a detective bureau because of the size of his agency and turns all of his drug investigations over to the Sheriff's Office, who has 2 dedicated investigators, a fact which the Sheriff has not disputed. We have currently the only county in Northeast Ohio that's not involved in a drug task force. As Sheriff, I will redistribute assets until we have the right mix to forcefully attack illegal drugs trafficking in our county, to include creating a Geauga County Drug Task Force. Our sheriff is also the fire chief in Hamden, which is a paid position. I believe that you deserve a full-time sheriff, not distracted by multitasking between 2 careers. If you have concerns about retire or rehire, consider this. Our current sheriff was retire and rehire as chief deputy, and he currently allows members of his staff to retire and rehire. And this maintains a status quo in our agencies, which is never good. In a 2018 budget hearing, which I sat in on, I learned that the Sheriff's Department has 90 vehicles for 40 deputies. He allows staff members who are not certified peace officers to have emergency vehicles as take-home cars. Our current Sheriff's Office is undercharging for services for out-of-county jail inmates. The money gained by charging going rates from our neighboring communities could be used for training for staff members in foreign language skills, cultural skills, for dealing with non-English speaking inmates, such as our ICE inmates. And let's not forget that our sheriff was also part of the ADP board when millions of dollars was taken. Our deputies, dispatchers, corrections officers deserve quality, up-to-date training that they have asked for to keep them both safe and secure in their jobs. And you want me to quit?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I have several questions for both of you. The first question I have is, both of you have said that you are not fans of red flag laws. Are there any circumstances that justify the restriction of a private citizen's right to own a weapon, a gun specifically? We'll start with you, Mr. Hilton Brand.
Well, certainly there are restrictions on that. If you're a convicted felon, you're not permitted to own a firearm. So yes, there are circumstances where that is true.
But is it true that you are not a fan of red flag laws?
Well, I have not read the entire red flag laws. They've changed so many times. I'm not in favor of somebody just making an accusation about somebody and then they expect you to go and confiscate their weapons. There needs to be some reason for that, such as a conviction or threats or something to that nature that the court has deemed needs to happen.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Holden.
Red flag laws. First off, let me just say that there are laws on the books. As the sheriff said, convicted felons are not allowed to own firearms or people who are adjudicated mentally deficient. Crazy. When it comes to red flag laws, I don't believe that a red flag law can be written that does not violate our constitutional rights of due process and illegal search and seizure. If an attorney can write one, and it can be constitutionally sound through all 10 amendments, then I would be for it, but I don't think it can be done.
Thank you. All right, the next question. Have you ever been accused of sexual harassment during your tenure in law enforcement? We'll start with you, Mr. Holden.
Yes, I was. And let me just say, as a supervisor, it's my responsibility to ensure employees feel comfortable and safe. I failed, I was disciplined, and I took ownership of my actions. Transparency of government is something that I support, and my discipline records are no exception. I deeply appreciate the support of coworkers and supervisors that saw that there was more to me in my work than what is currently being circulated from my disciplinary record. I have no animosity towards persons that speak poorly of me, and I am not perfect.
Mr. Hildenbrand. Have you ever been accused of sexual harassment during your tenure in law enforcement?
No, I have never been disciplined nor suspended for anything in my 35 years.
Okay, this one, the question was specifically, have you been accused of sexual
No, I've
harassment?
not been
No?
accused
Okay.
of sexual harassment.
Follow-up question on this card was, have you ever been written up or suspended, and if so, why? And Mr. Hildenbrand, I think you just answered that question already. Mr. Holden?
Yes, I was suspended during that period there. I paid my debt. I've also been suspended for not terminating a pursuit as a supervisor and getting involved in the pursuit and blocking the driveway so that the fleeing suspect couldn't exit a driveway. That was against policy, and I was suspended for that.
All right. Next question for both of you. The sheriff's office has 3 special deputies that oversee sex offender registration, a victim's advocate, and crimes against women. Do you intend to continue these programs? Mr. Hildenbrand.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The question is, the sheriff's office has 3 special deputies that oversee sex offender registration, a victim's advocate, and crimes against women. Do you intend to continue these programs?
Yes, I do. They're very successful. They do a great job, and they're available 24/7. They come out and help the people. I'm very proud of that.
Okay. Mr. Holden.
Yes, I was recently asked that at a church meeting. I believe those programs are successful as well. I heard some great stories about the work that the victim's advocate did for a couple, and absolutely, that's part of what the sheriff's department does, and I agree with the sheriff. Those should stand.
Okay, the next question has to do with drugs. And we'll start with you, Mr. Holden. What experience do you have with drug task forces?
As a multi-jurisdictional SWAT team leader, I had the opportunity to serve many drug warrants where the task forces had obtained some information and gathered a search warrant. It was my job as the team leader to work with the detectives that was doing the investigations and set up the drug raids and take down the bad guys.
What statistics, and this is a multi-part question, so I'm going to ask all of them
Okay.
to Mr. Holden, and then I'll ask all of them to Mr. Hildenbrand. What statistics say drug crimes are rising in Geauga County when all the crime statistics show Geauga at a much lower rate than each of its neighbors?
I'm sorry, you're going to have to repeat that.
The question is regarding statistics
Okay.
about drug crimes in Geauga County. This question assumes that, or states that, all of the crime statistics show Geauga at a much lower rate than each of its neighboring counties.
Well, I'm not sure what statistics you're looking at or what we're talking about, so it's really hard to answer that question.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Hildenbrand, what experience do you have with drug task forces? And as the follow-up, what statistics say that drug crimes are rising in Geauga County?
I have experience. When I was at the Chardon Police Department, I was part of the county task force at the time. There were officers from Middlefield, Chardon, Bainbridge, all assigned to a drug task force. We also were part of the Trumbull, Geauga, Ashtabula task force. That eventually broke off. In fact, Ashtabula and Trumbull County don't have a drug task force. They went and built their own in their own county, so they're not part of that task force, and that's exactly what we did. We wanted to concentrate on the drugs and the problem in Geauga County and not Ashtabula and Trumbull. It just wasn't working out, so that's why we moved away from that.
Okay.
And as far as the statistics, again, I don't know where you're getting that from, but I believe it because I think that our people do a great job.
Okay. And then the third part of this multi-part question was, have you ever been removed from a task force? Mr. Hildenbrand.
Removed from what?
Removed from a drug task force.
No.
Mr. Holden.
No.
Okay. Moving on. The next question is also directed to both of you. Do you do any volunteer work in order to help the community outside of your job? Mr. Hildenbrand.
Well, yes, I volunteer at the fire department, and yes, there is some stipend that is paid. I don't have a lot of hobbies. I don't do a lot of things, so in my free time, I choose to help out the community in which I live in and the neighboring communities when we're called for help.
Okay. Mr. Holden?
Well, I'm on the Board of Mental Health and Recovery Services. That's not a paid job, that's all volunteer. And I volunteer my time with the Cleveland Heights Police Academy in teaching young cadets law enforcement, firearms, self-defense, and various other subjects matter as I'm called upon.
Okay. This last question is directed to Mr. Hildenbrand. How can an elected official in Geauga County serve two separate agencies or organizations and receive salaries from both? Is that legal and proper?
Well, I serve as the sheriff and have for the last 3 years and have done both professions for the last 35, going on 40 years. It's, like I stated earlier, it's a volunteer fire department. We do get a stipend, it's not a salary, and we help out the community, and that's what I do in my spare time. On the weekends, when I have time, I go up to the fire station, or at night, if there's a call, I'll respond to that. I think they have both worked very well together. They complement each other. I learn things in the fire service that carries over to the sheriff's office because we're responsible for all the dispatching and fire departments. That relationship between the sheriff's office and all the fire departments has been bolstered by that because of my knowledge and I understand.
Thank you. Thank you both for your thoughtful and helpful answers. And if you would exit stage left. Thank you.